Welcome once again to the Catholic View for Women, where we give you news and views from a truly Catholic perspective. I'm Teresa Tomeo, and you may have heard some very loud clapping in the background. That's because we have our wonderful pilgrims here in studio with us as we continue with Season 6 of the Catholic View for Women. They are from all over the United States of America, and this is our first ever pilgrimage, which was sold out. We're so excited. And let's see, how many states do we have represented?
Many.
Just about almost every one, seems like. Indiana, Minnesota, Kansas, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Florida, California. Did I miss anybody? Minnesota.
And Maryland.
And Maryland. I said
Yes,
Maryland.
always said Maryland. All right.
But this is our first pilgrimage that we've done, and they've been getting a tour of the studio, watching us tape the show, going all around, and they'll be on set with us as we do some other shows. So it's pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
That's right, absolutely. And then, of course, tomorrow we're going to have a spiritual day. We're going out to Hansville with Father Pavone, who's our spiritual advisor, first of all, for the series, and then we're going to have a day of retreat out there. So after taping 13 episodes, it'll be nice to have a little day of turning to the Lord and rest, as he said, be still and rest with me. So that's
be still and know that he is God.
That's right.
And we want to thank our friends at Corporate Travel for working with the EWTN Pilgrimage Department for making this all happen. And Carmen, who is from, of course, the Michigan office in suburban Detroit, did a great job of coordinating all of the efforts and everything, all the details that have to be done for a pilgrimage like this. Big success, and they're already asking us about next year.
That's right.
Exciting.
So they'll have to go to the CatholicViewForWomen.com and get the info on next year's pilgrimage.
So if you want to come, go to our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com. But we're going to talk about something I think that is so needed in our society right now, and that is a true understanding of what we mean by chastity.
That's right. And in particular, I think when couples are engaged, there are so many, when you hear, I know from my own 3 daughters, as they went through pre-Cana, there was this wink. They said, Mom, you know, there was maybe 8 couples sit around a table for a discussion of something that was going on in the retreat. And just about everybody except my daughter and my son-in-law were cohabitating, and they were all giving the wink, you know, like, oh yeah, you know. Because this is the secular society. This is the way society is telling them it's okay to do. Just live together. Try it out to see if it's going to work. I mean, I remember one young person told one of my daughters that, well, yeah, because after all, what if you don't like them in bed and this and that? You got to check it all out before you walk down the aisle. I'm saying,
so
Mamma mia, this is like so wrong. And so I think when a couple is engaged, living chastity, you know, so many of them will make that commitment in high school or college. Okay, we'll live chaste, but now they meet Prince Charming, they get engaged. It gets harder.
Absolutely. And chastity gives you this firm foundation, first of all, in God, to be able to build a marriage that leads to heaven. And many couples are living chastity. Many young couples, obviously it's very difficult, but they're almost being countercultural. They're being made fun of. But my goodness, when we meet them, when we interview them, they're so happy and they're so grateful for having waited.
Because they're not stressed out about having one of I don't know how many dozens of sexually transmitted diseases. I mean, it's at epidemic proportions now.
All of that.
Right.
And so it is possible, but as this young couple that we're about to show the clip of, it really is difficult, but absolutely worth it. And I want you to observe when you see these interviews, the joy and the peace.
How much in love they are.
And the honesty, too, about how difficult it is. And we're going to give you some practical tips about how to live chastity.
Right. And, of course, we're talking about Jessica Fodi and Victor Bermudez. And actually, you know, Victor Bermudez was very involved in the pro-life movement with myself and Father Pavone. He was a summer intern one year with Brian Kemper of our Youth Outreach Stand True Ministry. And they're a wonderful couple. And I was out visiting with Astrid. We got to interview them. So let's...
I've worked with Jessica. She's a wonderful young lady. So you're going to see this beautiful interview.
Okay, let's see what they had to say.
Chastity is, I think, one of the hardest things every young person faces in their lives. I think more than drugs, more than any kind of other vice, in my opinion. I am blessed to have gone to a university that really, really speaks out on the importance of chastity. But even there, I know, you know, many of my good friends who aren't horrible people, they struggle, you know, and I always tell people that, you know, it's not, you either got it or you don't. I have to fight for chastity, you know, every day. And I have to make sure I'm doing whatever I can to keep that you know, to keep that gift that God's allowing me to have right now of just this purity before I get married to Jessica. And I think the important thing really that really helps me so much is realizing that the best thing for our formation as a couple to build a strong foundation for marriage is really this idea that our relationship includes just as much of our faith, just as much of our family, just as much of our community as it does ourselves right now. And, we're working to become one. And until then, when we are going out, might go out to dinner and we might go see a movie, but we love, to very often bring our family and to bring our friends and to bring our communities in, because really we're going to unite in marriage, but our communities are also going to kind of become one. Because it's a lot easier to be chaste when you're thinking Mary's in the room, Jesus' mother's in the room. It's a lot easier to be chaste when you're thinking Jesus is, right there, dying for my sins. And I know, I know there's a lot of very, very practical things, like, not being in a room alone at night, or not thinking that you could go in a room and lay down together and watch a movie and nothing's going to happen. And I know there's a lot of people who really are very good at fooling themselves into thinking that's possible. And it might be possible one night, but it won't be possible the second, I'll tell you that. And it's a constant battle that we face.
Yeah, I think the biggest scripture passage that resounds with me when it comes to chastity is that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, and how often we strive for these ideals, but we fall short, when our temptations override, what we're thinking or what our conscience is telling us. And so, like Victor said, just to be really committed, to recognize, in your mind when you're thinking, this doesn't feel right, and to continue down that path where you're knowing in your heart and in your mind, something feels wrong about this, even though your body might be saying, yes, this is exactly what you think you want. And so to just be honest with yourself and to remember that this is an expression, it's supposed to be an expression of love. And when it's not being fulfilled in the right context, feeling that sense that you're really hurting the other person, it becomes more like you're trying to take something from them because you're not ready to fully give yourself. So what are you really doing in this situation? And so to think when you really love someone, you want to give them 110%. And when you're engaged, sometimes 110% is just realizing, when you need to step away from certain situations and just constantly reaffirming who they are, not just for their sexuality, but for what they're smart at, where their intelligence is, what their talents are, and just building them up in that sense, so that when we are ready to commit ourselves to marriage, that we're gonna have spent so much time building each other up in all these other areas of our lives, that expression of love is going to mean so much more to us than spending all this time kind of tainting, what could be something so new and special and distinct, for marriage. And not just we're engaged and we know this is going to happen eventually. No, that's not an option for us. So we do struggle, but we always have this goal in mind, and it's something that we know we're going to treasure so much when we're married. And not just that, but thinking about our family and what we want to share with them and our kids when we're older, and saying, you know what, your father and I waited, we made this a priority, and we want you to do the same, because look how fruitful, we are as a family, and how being able to become disciplined in this area of our lives will trickle down and affect everything else. And learning that self-mastery and that self-discipline, and knowing that I can trust Victor with my body, and that he won't fall into temptations, for, abuse or any of these things, because I know him as a person. He treasures my body and my spirit. And so I think it's an all-encompassing thing. And so for us to recognize that it's always going to be a part of our lifestyle, not just before marriage, but after marriage, and our practice of, natural family planning, making that a priority as well. We've already learned, we know what abstinence is like, we know what that means, and so being prepared for marriage in that way as well is also going to be huge for us.
Right, and I think I like to kind of give the analogy that, chastity is something personally that I have to work for every single day, And I think of it like, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to have that kind of profession, it's something that you are going to work hard at every single day. You can't become a doctor without studying very, very hard, working very, very hard, putting your all into it. And people who think that they could just achieve chastity, they could achieve a beautiful, pure relationship without working every single day to make that happen are fooling themselves. Because chastity takes hard work, just like any other great achievement. It takes hard work, and it takes constant hard work.
Look at the way they look at each other.
Oh, I know.
You can see the how they adore each other.
They
It's
adore
just
each other.
sweet.
It's so sweet. And, I was with Astrid. I was down in Southern California and did the interview. And I was saying to Astrid, I said, look how she's looking so adoringly at Victor, and then he at her as they were both speaking.
There's much to admire. I mean,
Yes.
look at his strong leadership. He just exudes that leadership, being proactive at defending the virtue of chastity, which is what every man should strive for. God gives you the grace to strive for that. And her as a woman, being feminine, being free to be treasured because she is a treasure because of her spiritual life. And even in their engagement, it was very special. He really wanted to express to her how much he loved her, how much everybody loved her. He made a special video of her grandparents from Italy saying how much they loved her and congratulating them. So I think it's beautiful how they mention how the family is important.
That's right.
How it's not just them. It's not about this selfishness. It's about including God, including family and community, and also the value of going to a Catholic, an authentically Catholic college.
Yeah,
They went to
Steubenville.
Franciscan
As opposed to a
University.
Catholic in name only
Yes, that's where they
university.
met. So that's something to also
And,
consider.
Victor told me a funny story about how they started to go from their friendships, because their friendship started as be part of the pro-life club. And so he kind of looked over at Jessica himself in his mind. He told me, he says, oh, she's so pretty. Oh, she'd never go out with me. I don't think so. And so they had this event at night. It was like a social event. It was a dance. And he announced at the end of the dance, well, whoever wants to go to the abortion mill tomorrow with me and pray, we have our group. We're going to pray.
Early morning.
Early morning. We're going to be there at 7 a.m. And he said Jessica's hand shot right up. And he said, oh. And so
Still my beating heart.
and so it was their praying to save babies brought them closer together. And then they got so involved in the pro-life club together. And the next thing you know, he just like totally, and then she fell in love with him. It's such a beautiful story.
You know what's interesting is she talked about him protecting her and not abusing her in any way.
Exactly.
And this reminds me of what Pope Paul VI said in Humana Vitae, because who was I talking to just yesterday, I think on my radio show, talking about how that is really a feminist, it was Bill Donahue from the Catholic League, how Humana Vitae, if you really look at it with an open mind, it's a very new feminism document, because
That's
it talks about protecting women, that if our culture, Pope Paul VI said, if our culture goes away of contraception and abortion, women are going to be the victims. And look at how bad we are treated in terms of pornography, over-sexualization, all these different things, right? Sexual objectification,
And of course, this story has, of course, a happy ending. In May of 2015, they had their wedding. They walked down the aisle, and I believe we have a picture. Yeah, there they
look
are.
at how cute.
How beautiful.
That deserves a round of applause
Beautiful
from our live audience.
culmination.
How beautiful.
And the beautiful story continues, because in September 2015, they'll be moving to Ave Maria
In Florida?
In Florida,
Wow.
and Victor is going to enter their law program on a full scholarship.
Praise
Bright
God.
young man, so we're going to have a good pro-life lawyer and pro-life family, children. It's just a beautiful story.
Yes,
A beautiful, beautiful
absolutely.
story.
It's absolutely worth it to strive for chastity and to build a marriage in Christ.
But don't you think it's important to understand the difference between abstinence and chastity? Now, they were talking about it in terms of within the
Natural
marriage and
family
natural family planning, but I think so often when we're out there talking to young people, to give them an understanding of what chastity is, because you were
Yes.
saying during the break how
Yes.
chastity is a virtue and they need to
It's a
embrace that.
virtue. It's learning how to truly love someone, love their soul, as opposed to abstinence, which just means means no.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a period of abstinence during natural family planning. So to think of chastity as a positive virtue, it means to truly love someone.
It's true.
And it is a good preparation for marriage, because there are times in your marriage, I'll be married, well, I'm married 32 years now, where you're going to have to give and take with your spouse. And so when you learn that through that approach of chastity, it helps you build a stronger relationship.
That's right.
So, all right, we'll talk some more after the break, but we have a lot of things to get through, and we have some great homework assignments for you. You are, of course, watching the Catholic View for Women on EWTN, and we have our wonderful live audience, our first ever pilgrimage for this show. We'll be back with more on engaging in chastity. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Catholic View for Women. We're discussing on this episode Engaging in Chastity, and we are here with our first ever live audience on our pilgrimage. It's our first Catholic View for Women pilgrimage, and they're with us for several shows, touring the studios, and really just finding out more about what goes on behind the scenes. In discussing our topic, Engaging in Chastity, I just really, what a great young couple. But I think, and sometimes people watch and they may think, oh boy, that sounds so flowery and so, you know, highfalutin, I could never do that. Or are you serious? Really expect kids in today's culture to engage in chastity? What are you smoking? Well, we have some practical tips for you, some great advice, and we're going to toss it over to Astrid.
Yes, well, the Focus blog, which is a Fellowship of Catholic University Students, has a great blog, and there's an article by Lisa Cotter. It's wonderful. It's called 8 Practical Ways to Pursue Chastity While Dating. So we have to get to the concrete. How do you do this? I mean, and Victor said it, it's very difficult, but one of the first things is you can consecrate yourself to the Angelic Warfare Confraternity, which is a beautiful devotion to St. Thomas Aquinas, and basically his being able to conquer that temptation to offend the virtue of chastity. So there, you can go on the website and find that. And then also keep your feet on the floor. Imagine that. Just something as simple as that.
What a concept.
Always to keep your feet on the floor. Turn on the lights. Get out. Basically, go and do things outdoors with friends, with family. Put yourself in interruptible situations. See,
now, okay, so we were joking during the break. All right, so if you're in a diet, you're not going to hang out. You know, for me, I'm not into sweets. I'd stay away from an Italian deli. That's when my knees go weak. But a lot of people love sweets. So if you're on a diet, you're not going to go hang around at your favorite bakery or ice cream parlor, right?
So, and, you know, at Priest for Life, it's kind of funny. Right next to our office, there's a Dunkin' Donuts right next to a Weight Watchers. Not a good idea.
Hello.
But that's like what Astrid's saying here is don't
put yourself
Victor was saying,
situations.
Like, we're not going to be sitting on a couch with the lights down low and watch a movie because you're giving, like, you know, I always think of the angel and the devil whispering here and the devil going, go ahead, put your arm around it, and what's the big deal, you know? And the angel goes, no, Victor, don't do that, don't do that. It's the same kind of thing, you know? Don't put yourself in that situation where, like, the near occasion of sin is going to open up the door, and there's going to be, you know?
Be practical, and also be accountable. If you have sexual sins in your past, you know it's your weakness, then have somebody like an accountability partner, a good friend who also embraces chastity or striving for chastity, a spiritual director that you can speak to about these struggles, who will pray with you. That's really important. And then also spare the details. I mean, you know, you don't have to discuss how far you've gone, all this, until, you know, the time is right in courtship or as God leads you. But, you know, you can spare those details when you first, you know, starting to date somebody. And then give yourself a curfew. I mean, nothing good happens after 2 a.m. You know, some wise, you know, grandparents will tell you. So basically, just be very practical. Know yourself. You know, and then if you really value chastity as a treasure, you're not going to want anything to put, you know, to endanger it. You're not going to put yourself, you know, next to a Dunkin' Donuts spiritually. So be very practical. Go to this website. I didn't cover the different details, but go to Focus blog and look up Lisa Cotter, 8 Practical Ways to Pursue Chastity While Dating. Share it, please, on Facebook. Many young people really want to live this. They see a testimony like Jessica's and Victor's. They want to strive, but we're not giving them sometimes these practical tips.
I think we should also put a shout out to parents out there, and don't think it's okay to let your son or your daughter, even if they're engaged, to hang out together alone. Leaving them alone at night or in a room or in the living room and giving them you're basically putting them in the near occasion.
I mean, if you have a family like rec room in the basement, well, don't let them go hang out downstairs by themselves in the family rec room or in the den. You know, have them in the whole family room where everyone's around, like you said, with other people around. I think also too the parents have to watch out things like, well, you're not going to let your daughter go off with her boyfriend on spring break. You're not going to let them go to a frat party where there's drinking and actually we know that they slip these drugs in at these things and date rapes and all that. You don't put yourself in these situations. You have to say no, basta.
And then you could also, I have to call up Curtis Martin from Focus and say he should put 1-800-DIAL-ROSIE. Call my mother. She'll set the parents straight real quickly on how to, you know, because I'm your mother. That's why.
That's why. Yeah, Rosie will.
Yeah.
But also, too, you know, St. John Paul II left us beautiful, beautiful teachings with theology of the body. I just want to read a quote. There's a couple quotes I'd like to point out. The first one is, only the chaste man and the chaste woman are capable of true love. That's really beautiful, isn't it? And then, of course, another one from St. John Paul II is, chastity is a difficult, long-term matter. One must wait patiently for it to bear fruit for the happiness of loving kindness which it must bring. But at the same time, chastity is the sure way to happiness.
Absolutely, and I think of the Beatitudes,
Right.
Only the pure of heart will see God. I think when you're discerning, especially like who the right person is, if you're not living chastity, how can you see clearly? Like we see young people say that the ones that are truly discerning prayerfully say that when they're not dating the right person, they get this anxiety, something's not quite right. Well, if you're not living chastity, you're not getting those cues from God. You're not looking deeply because you're so distracted by these other things that are giving you a false sense of attraction,
Right.
a false cue that that's the person. It's more having to do with hormones than really what the heart is telling you, what God is telling you.
And also, too, you have to be careful of the friends you pick, like who's in your circle of friends, because if all your girlfriends are sleeping with their boyfriends, well, what's the temptation? It's like they want birds of a feather flock together. They're going to kind of be encouraging, oh, come on, it's no big deal. You're going to hear that. You have to choose your friends wisely. And maybe it's time for some young ladies and young men to sort out who are they hanging out with, because that's how more temptation falls.
And what they're doing too.
Right.
Like Jessica and Victor were doing wonderful things for the church, going out and saving unborn babies. Like, what
So
are
they
you
weren't hanging
spending
out
your
at the bars till 2 or 3 in the morning. They
No.
were at pro-life
No,
events.
exactly.
They were
Idle.
at
Yeah.
faith events. And
Exactly.
the other thing too is what are they taking in media-wise? That's huge.
Yes,
That's huge
huge.
because pornography is so prevalent, not just in the homes today. It's of epidemic proportions, and so many young people. I think the average age now for a young person to view internet pornography is something like 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
And so it's very important for them to not be exposed to all kinds of things. And think about, I remember I had done when 50 Shades of Grey, when the books first came out, I was doing all kinds of reports on it on my radio program. And I went to visit, Dominic and I went to visit a relative out east, and young parents with young kids in the home, and literally I walked in the door and there was a copy of the book sitting on the shelf, and I said, really? I mean, I just talked about it on the air, and they have 2 young children, a girl and a boy, and what does that say?
Right.
That says that not being chaste and trying all kinds of things outside of God's plan for human sexuality is okay. So again, I have to stress to the parents, are you helping to raise children in an environment that's going to lead them to have a relationship like these 2 beautiful young people?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Astrid, I think there's a few other saints too
One of my favorites,
can point to.
Saint Josemaria Escrivá said the following: "Holy purity is granted by God when it is asked for with humility."
Right.
And humility includes really being practical and knowing yourself, I believe. And then Saint Alphonsus Liguori: "We must practice modesty, not only in our looks, but also in our whole deportment, and particularly in our dress, our walk, our conversation, and all similar actions."
Well, I mean,
That's
dress is really important, and
key.
we've said this, I know, in our other programs too. That first of all, let's start with church. How do you dress when you're going to mass? I mean, that's really key. Do a mirror check. I mean, I always say pretend, or not even pretend, act like, I would say to people, put a holy card on the mirror, Jesus and Mary, and say,
Especially the ones that follow you when you walk around the room.
yes. Because if that outfit's not going to pass muster, you wouldn't wear it in front of Jesus and Mary, then don't walk out the door in that outfit either. That's really
modesty
important.
advocate Jessica Ray said something very beautiful. She said, modesty is not about covering up, it's about revealing dignity.
That's right.
Who you truly are, so that they can focus on your inner self. Who you really are as a person and not as a conglomeration of body parts.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember what Pam Stencil said, our good friend, that, if you want to get a good guy, it's how you bait the hook. So if you're baiting the hook with wearing very scantily revealing clothes, well, what kind of guy you're going to get? Not someone who's going to respect you and want to help you live a chaste life.
Right.
You got to watch how you dress.
Real
modestly.
quickly, only have a minute 30 left for the
All right.
homework, Janet. So let's get through that.
Okay, first, recommended reading is to read by Bishop Fulton Sheen, read 3 to Get Married. Another great read, item number 2, is Familiaris Consortium, and we'll have the link on our website to that beautiful document. And of course, item number 3, read Intimate Graces, a
brand new book.
beautiful, brand new devotional written by our good friend here, Teresa Tomeo, and her wonderful husband, Deacon Dominic Pastore. Number 4 is the Beloved series from Augustine Institute. Number 5, of course, go to the Catholic View for Women and join in the discussion questions there, and also sign up for a monthly e-letter. And finally, number 6, Jason Everett's website, chastityproject.com. And finally, number 7, for university students to promote chastity and marriage, go to loveandfidelity.org.
Also encourage them always, we want to let you know, to really look at those discussion questions, even if you don't have maybe a Bible study group or a discussion group that you can share the questions with. do some of your own discernment when you're praying, when you're doing your readings. Look at the questions that we have on there and think about things that you can do to improve your own relationship with God and to promote things like engaging in chastity. Thanks so much for watching The Catholic View for Women. We'll see you next time right here on EWTN. Take care.